I want you to picture a moment we have all been in at some point. You're standing on the very edge of a massive decision.
Hmm.
Maybe it is taking a completely new job in a different city. Maybe it is ending a long-term relationship. Or honestly, maybe it is something as simple as sending a really difficult email.
Right, the kind that just sits in your drafts folder.
Exactly. And you are agonizing over it. You are sweating. You are playing out all the scenarios in your head like, if I say yes, then this happens. If I say no, then that happens.
You feel like you are the director of a movie.
Yes. You feel like everything hinges on this one specific scene.
It is the classic moment of choice.
Um,
We really do love that moment. We completely obsess over it.
we do. We treat it like it is the climax of the entire film. We think the absolute weight of our lives is concentrated right there in that split second of saying I do or I quit or send.
Yeah.
We really think that if we just get the decision right, the rest of the story just magically resolves itself.
It is a very human compulsion, I think. We desperately want to believe that control lies in the trigger pull. But today, we are going to look at a source that says we are focusing on entirely the wrong end of the timeline.
Yeah, this one, I gotta say, this one really threw me for a loop. Today, we are doing a deep dive into an essay titled Consequence by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha.
It is a fascinating piece.
It is, but I have to be honest with you and with everyone listening right now, this is not a comfortable read. It is not some 5 steps to a better life kind of piece.
No, definitely not.
It feels more like a cold splash of water to the face.
It really is, because it is a structural analysis of reality. Mala is not interested in comforting you. He is interested in accuracy.
Right.
He essentially argues that the decision, that singular thing we obsess over, is brief, it ends quickly, but the consequence,
Right.
that is the water we actually have to swim in for the rest of our lives.
And the main thesis of his essay is that we completely misunderstand what a consequence actually is. We think we know, but we really do not.
Not at all.
So let us start right there. If I asked you, or if I asked a listener 5 minutes ago to draw a picture of a consequence, I am drawing a car crash. I am drawing the screaming match where the plates get thrown against the kitchen wall. I am drawing the big explosion.
Right, the dramatic rupture,
Yeah.
the loud event.
But Malha says, no, that is not the consequence.
Exactly. He argues that the explosion is just the event. It is merely the catalyst. But the consequence itself, that is what begins after the dust settles.
Yeah.
He has this one line that really defines the whole essay for me. He says, consequence is what happens when attention is shifted and the body has returned to ordinary routines.
Ordinary routines. I mean, that is such a weird way to describe something that feels so heavy.
But think about it. The car crash is terrifying, sure. But the crash itself lasts 3 seconds.
Right.
The ambulance ride lasts 20 minutes. But the consequence is 5 years later when you cannot kneel down to tie your shoe because your knee just does not work the way it used to.
Wow.
The consequence is the limp. It is the thing that persists long after everyone else has stopped looking.
So he is totally separating the drama from the durability.
Yes. He talked about how we expect consequences to be loud. We expect a literal lightning bolt. But in reality, true consequence is quiet.
It is quiet.
It is the ordinariness that makes it so powerful. It is the fact that you still have to get up, you have to make coffee, answer your emails, go to the grocery store, but the very texture of your reality has fundamentally shifted.
He uses some incredibly haunting visuals to explain this in the text. One that really stuck with me was his workplace example.
Oh, that is a great one.
He describes a workplace where nothing exploded, the building did not burn down, people still show up at 9 a.m. every single day, but as he puts it, it no longer offers protection.
That is a chilling visual because it is so incredibly subtle. You cannot point to a single day on the calendar and say, there, that is where it broke.
Right, there was no email announcing it.
Exactly. But everyone working there knows it is broken. The trust is gone. The safety is gone. You are just going through the motions inside a structure that has been totally hollowed out.
Or the family dinner example he gives. He talks about a family that gathers together, they eat the food, they pass the salt, but they carry an unnamed silence through every single room of the house.
That is the quiet factor that Malha emphasizes so heavily. See, the explosion allows you to be a hero or a victim. You get an adrenaline rush from it. You can actually rally against a crisis.
You have a clear enemy.
Yes. But you cannot rally against a silence that has just settled into the living room furniture. You cannot fight the fact that Tuesdays simply feel different now.
It is almost like the consequence becomes the background radiation of your life. It is not the bomb dropping. It is the radiation that lingers.
That is a perfect analogy. And because it is just background radiation, we eventually stop noticing it as a separate thing.
Yeah.
It just becomes how life is. And that is exactly where Malha says the real weight lies.
Yeah.
It is not in the dramatic moment of change, but in the stubborn persistence of the new shape your life has taken.
Okay, so that establishes the definition. It is not the crash, it is the limp. But then he moves on to how this stuff actually travels through our lives. And this is the part where my brain actually started to hurt a little bit, I will be honest.
The migration of cause and effect.
Yeah, because we usually think in straight lines, right? I do X, so Y happens. It is an immediate feedback loop. I touch the hot stove, I burn my hand, cause effect, super simple.
Right.
But Malha says consequence migrates. He says it moves sideways.
He totally challenges the idea that the punishment, or just the result, stays close to the original mistake.
Yeah.
We desperately want the consequence to look exactly like the decision. We want them to be twins.
We want it to make sense.
Exactly. But Malha says consequence stretches forward and sideways. It disperses across time.
Can we break that down? Because sideways sounds very abstract to me. Can you give me a concrete example of a sideways consequence from the essay?
Let us look at his example of the sentence spoken once. Malha writes about how a sentence, maybe something sharp you said in a heated argument, or even just a careless joke at a party, can become a closed door years later.
So the original cause was just a sound, a few casual words.
Right. You probably forgot you even said it 10 minutes later. But that sentence traveled, it migrated. And then 5 years later, it manifests not as another argument, but as an opportunity you did not get.
Like what?
Like a wedding invitation that never arrived in the mail, or a promotion at work that quietly went to someone else.
So the consequence is just a closed door.
Precisely. And here's the truly scary part. The closed door does not look anything like this sentence. If you look at a door, it does not remind you of a careless joke you made in 2018. They seem completely unrelated to each other.
But they're causally linked.
Yes, the consequence is mutated into a completely different form over time.
That is terrifying. Because it means we cannot really track it. We cannot just look at our lives and neatly draw lines back to specific moments because all the lines have gotten tangled and stretched out.
It is terrifying. He also gives the example of a departure. He says a departure made out of necessity becomes a permanent absence in someone else's future.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. You leave because you absolutely have to. Maybe for a new job, maybe just for your own sanity. That is your decision. But the consequence of that decision lives entirely inside someone else's timeline. It is migrated from you to them.
So the cause is in my life, but the effect is in yours.
Exactly. And that massive disconnect is why we struggle so much to understand why things are happening to us. We're constantly looking for a direct cause in our recent history, but the seed was actually planted years ago.
Right.
Maybe by someone else entirely, or maybe by a younger version of ourselves that we do not even recognize anymore.
This leads right into the part of the essay that I think is going to genuinely upset some people. It upset me initially. I really found myself wanting to argue with the text here.
You are talking about the myth of fairness.
Yes. Because if consequence migrates, and if it constantly changes shape, then it does not really care about why I did what I did. It does not care about my intentions at all.
Malha is absolutely ruthless here. He states flatly that consequence has no ethical structure.
See, that is a hard pill to swallow. We all grow up on this diet of karmic justice, the idea that if I meant well, the fallout should not be that bad. Or if I was forced into a really tough decision, the universe should cut me some slack.
We want the universe to grade us on effort.
Yeah.
We want a cosmic point system that says, I tried hard, I am basically a good person, so please do not let the glass break.
Exactly. I did not mean to drop it.
But Malha is saying reality is a mechanism. It is not a judge. It operates strictly through physics, interaction, and exposure.
Right.
If you drop the glass, gravity pulls it down. Gravity does not care if you were rushing to save a baby or if you were just drunk and clumsy in the kitchen. The glass breaks either way. The consequence is purely structural. It is not moral.
He has that one specific line. A person can speak honestly and lose safety. That one hit me so hard.
It is brutal.
You can do the right thing. You can tell the truth. You can be the brave whistleblower at work. You can be completely honest with your partner, and your life can still fall entirely apart.
And conversely, someone can lie through their teeth and be protected, or someone can refuse to act, just stay totally passive on the sidelines, and still get dragged right into the middle of the mess.
Yeah.
Malha points out that we constantly think innocence is a shield. We think, well, if I am not guilty, I should not suffer consequences. But consequence moves through systems. It is highly relational.
Give me an example of that.
If your company goes under because of terrible management decisions made 10 years ago, you lose your job today.
Hmm.
Your personal innocence does not save your paycheck.
It makes you feel very small, honestly. It completely strips away the main character energy where we think the whole world revolves around our personal moral compass.
It does. It suggests that the vast machinery of cause and effect is completely indifferent to us. It just works. Interaction, exposure, continuation. Those are the only gears that matter.
So if being a good person does not protect us, surely being smart does, right? I feel like my personal backup strategy is always deep analysis. If I just think about a problem enough, if I am perfectly aware of the cliff, I will not fall off it.
The trap of awareness. Mala shuts this down completely in the essay. He argues that merely understanding the process does not actually stop the process.
He says recognition does not buy time.
Exactly. Think about it like driving a car that starts sliding on black ice. You can look calmly out the window and say, oh, look, I am currently sliding on black ice. I am heading directly toward that metal guardrail. I understand the physics of friction perfectly.
Right.
Does that knowledge stop the car?
No, you are still sliding. You are still going to crash.
Because awareness often arrives in the middle, as Malha says.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you finally realize the pattern, by the time you realize this relationship is toxic, or this silence has destroyed our team culture at work, the shape is already firmly set. The momentum is already carrying you.
You cannot just think your way out of a trajectory that is already in full motion.
Right. And this directly brings us to the tools we constantly try to use to control those trajectories. Silence and speech. Mala refers to them as parallel generators of outcome.
Let us talk about silence first, because I think, especially when we are in conflict, we naturally view silence as the safe option. We think, if I do not say anything, I cannot get in trouble. It feels passive. It feels like hitting the pause button on reality.
But Mala completely reframes silence as an active, forceful thing. He says silence allows trajectories to continue unchallenged.
Yeah.
If you were in a car headed straight for a cliff and you sit silently in the passenger seat, you're not doing nothing. You're actively letting the car drive off the cliff.
So silence creates a future just as much as speaking does.
It creates a future by default. He talks about how the ultimate consequence of silence is very often resentment without a clear origin.
Resentment without origin.
Yes, you swallow your anger for 10 solid years, and then one random Tuesday you just despise your spouse. And you cannot even explain why, because it was not one big dramatic event. It was just the slow, invisible accumulation of silence.
It's like deferred interest on a loan. You are just pushing the emotional debt into the future.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, people realize this and think, okay, then I must speak. I must say absolutely everything on my mind.
Right, radical honesty.
But speech is not safe either.
Yeah.
Maha warns that speech creates a permanent record.
Once it is out of your mouth, you cannot stuff it back in the tube.
It creates immediate exposure. He says presence increases exposure. The more you rigidly define things, the more words you say, the less room you have to maneuver later. You essentially create a reality that stands independently of you.
So there really is no safe move. You cannot stay silent and be perfectly safe, and you cannot speak and be perfectly safe. Both actions actively generate consequences.
Neither is safe. Both produce futures that cannot be controlled. That is exactly the anxiety we started the conversation with, right?
Yeah.
The crushing realization that no matter what you do, you're triggering a complex chain of events that you cannot fully predict or manage.
Which brings us to the aftermath. If we cannot control it, and if it does not care about our intentions or our feelings, how do we actually live with it? Because humans love a good redemption arc. We desperately want to believe that if we just suffer through the consequence long enough, eventually we get to go back to normal. We heal.
And this is where Mala offers a very specific and honestly very useful distinction. He distinguishes clearly between healing and accommodation.
Accommodation. I have to say that sounds kind of like giving up. It sounds like settling for less.
I can certainly see why it feels that way at first glance. But think about the prosthetic leg analogy. If you lose a leg in an accident, healing in the magical sense would mean growing the biological leg back, returning perfectly to the state you were in before the injury.
Right.
Malha says that simply does not happen. The consequence is permanent.
So what exactly is accommodation then?
Accommodation is learning to walk with a prosthetic. It is actively learning where the new edges are. It is reorganizing your entire life around the new fixed reality.
It is mapping the new territory instead of wishing for the old map.
Yes. He writes that we must stop reaching for things that no longer respond.
Man.
That is such a heartbreaking but intensely practical line. Stop trying to get the relationship to be exactly what it was 5 years ago. It is not that thing anymore. Stop trying to make the workplace feel like a family if it is demonstrably proven that it's not one.
You just have to accept the new constraints.
And you have to find a meaningful way to live within them. That is what he means by accommodation. It's not defeat. It is adaptation. It is acknowledging that time does not magically erase consequence. Time normalizes it.
Normalizes it. That brings us right back to that background radiation idea.
Exactly. New outcomes just layer over the old ones. Eventually, the limp just becomes how you walk. It stops being this fresh wound. It just becomes your standard gait. The original decision, that agonizing moment on the ledge we talked about at the beginning, it fades away entirely.
Yeah.
Malha says the original decision no longer feels present enough to blame. What remains is simply how things are.
It is strange. Sitting here talking about this, I feel two very distinct things at once. On one hand, it feels incredibly bleak. It feels heavy to look at the listener and say, hey, nothing resets, fairness is a total myth, and you are stuck with the fallout forever.
It can absolutely feel that way initially.
But on the other hand, isn't there something kind of deeply freeing about it?
I think so. And Malha explicitly addresses that perceived bleakness. He says this is not nihilism, it is accuracy.
Accuracy. Just calling a spade a spade.
He is simply naming what happens next.
Right.
To call it depressing is like calling gravity depressing. It is just the condition of the room we are all standing in. And the real freedom comes from finally dropping the heavy baggage of the story.
The story of why me?
Exactly. Am I a victim? Am I a villain? Did I truly deserve this outcome? Malha suggests we stop wasting our precious energy on those useless classifications. Living inside consequence is not a virtue, it is not a failure, and it is not a choice. It is simply being alive.
It allows you to completely shift your focus from the past, which you cannot change no matter how hard you try, to the actual present reality.
Right. Instead of endlessly asking, why did this happen to me, you start asking, how do I inhabit this? How do I live here, right now, with these broken pieces, with this strange new shape?
That seems like the ultimate takeaway here. We spend so much time looking backward in the rearview mirror, trying to explain our past decisions, trying to justify them to ourselves and to other people. I meant well. I tried so hard, I did not have a choice.
And the consequence is just standing right in front of us, totally indifferent to all that frantic explanation.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with today. It is a challenge, really. If Mala is right, if consequence is really just what happens next, and it truly does not care about your good intentions, how much energy are you currently wasting trying to explain or justify your past?
And what would happen if you took all that wasted energy and used it to simply learn the new edges of your life, to stop fighting the reality of the consequence and start accommodating it?
What if the people you are desperately trying to explain yourself to are also just trapped in their own sideways consequences, completely unable to hear you anyway?
That is a profound way to look at it.
It is a really heavy question to mull over, but I think it is the only one that actually moves the needle in our lives.
It is the only real way to walk forward.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. I know this one was a bit of a psychological workout, but I think the accuracy of it was well worth the effort.
Always a pleasure to unpack these things.
We will see you next time. Take care of yourselves.